I can record the meet. All right, guys, we're ready to begin. Let me try to present my screen right now. What do I go on whiteboard? I don't know if you're using something. Oh, see it, I'm find it. I'm find it, people. I'm find it. We not see my screen now? Talk, people, talk.
Yes.
All right. So as I said before, the first ever topic of Caribbean studies is the location and the definition of the Caribbean. The location and definition of Caribbean, you have to know what is the Caribbean itself. They might ask this on paper two for the essay. They might ask you to identify what the Caribbean is, and they might give you a little tricky scenario and say, they might give you the definition of the Caribbean and or ask you who is in the Caribbean and who is excluded from the Caribbean and who are a part of the Caribbean, because people only define the Caribbean as geographic. They always say, oh, it is countries that wash upon the Caribbean Sea. That is what we most learned when we were in the secondary school or, well, in the primary school system, that the Caribbean is what wash upon the sea. But no, right now, in Caribbean studies, you know, it's more in-depth knowledge, and they have pushed and they have gone along, what I would say, they have dived into it and they have defined the Caribbean based on five chronologies, I guess that's the word. So yeah, the first thing you need to know is what is the Caribbean. And as defined here in the concise revised book, in the revision book, it says the Caribbean is a large region that is marked by diversity from mainland territories to islands and archipelagos. Having knowledge of the Caribbean, which I do like the definition, Caribbean's location fosters a better understanding of the diversity that coexists with our shared Caribbean experiences. As you guys can see there's no real definition for the Caribbean. It's just how you use up a definition or you would define the Caribbean yourself. I'll tell you guys to include the five chronologies, which I'll go down and I'll share it to you, which the first thing you need to know, what is the Caribbean? That is what you need to know in Carib studies, because that's one of the first things that will be tested on in module one. If it comes on the exam paper, what is the Caribbean? That is in module one. So that's the first everything you need to know. Then, because it's Caribbean studies too, you just need to know that. Then you just need to know what are the what are the five things that define the Caribbean. The five things that define the Caribbean is the geographical. That is the definition. So the Caribbean gets its definition from the geography, geological, and I'll get into them. History, they know political, and there is diaspora. So those are the five. So somebody repeat the five things how the Caribbean got their definition. I just want it sticking on the brain. So by the time they start school, I know. I can't get a definition for the Caribbean because, sorry about that. I can't get a definition for the Caribbean because, as I say, there's more than one definition for the Caribbean and such. But what I used to do, I used to include these five things within the definition. So I'll use the address for the Caribbean, like the 19 degrees. I forget the address right now. The degrees, not, oh, see it there, it's there. The region stretches from the 15. I'll use that in the definition. And I also said that it is on the Caribbean plate. I use that as a geological definition of the Caribbean. I include that. Historical, I would say it have slavery and those of political. I'll say it have the independent, the associated, the colonial, and then the diaspora. It's spread right across the world. So the person now to revise the five things of the Caribbean. Let me see if you think. Ready now. No, ready up. Guys, this is fast learning. I'm sorry. Hello?
So you said when we define the Caribbean, right? We have to use five things that involve the geographical, the historical, the geological, and the political, right?
And the
The ge and the what?
diaspora. You know what the diaspora is? I'll get into it, but I'm just so I have to know the five things. What you say? Hello? What were you saying? What were you saying?
I was just trying to get them down in order, like what you
Mm.
said, because we were going a little bit too fast.
Oh, my bad. If I'm going fast, you know, just pause me. Cause right now, may I teach you may I try teach. You know, I'm just getting the gist of it. So please tell me if I'm going too fast. I appreciate
Hi,
that, man.
Steve. I have a question.
Yeah, question.
Okay, so with the definition of the Caribbean, right? When you say we define it, right? You know, the
Mhm.
geographical, historical, geological, political, diasporic. Would we use those words plus the example, like with the example of the geographical, the historical, like how we say plates, the longitude and latitude, the diasporic, like things like that. Would we use the words geographical and all the five other words plus the example in that long definition or no?
I did that. I think my teacher in high school, she always said to do that because
Okay,
one,
awesome. Thank you.
yeah, she said once you did that, you know, the markers, they'll realize that you have some knowledge about what you're talking about, or you're using up the key terms and the key words. But as I said, these five words, those are the key words in defining the Caribbean. And also they can ask you to define a geographical Caribbean, and they can ask you, the Caribbean is known for its history. Can you define, you know, can you talk about the history of the Caribbean and did why did Guyana get is in the Caribbean, but the Guyana is not in the geographical low definition of the Caribbean. So for the limitations to each, that is what I'm saying, define it as what you said. So yeah, there are limitations, and I think I'm gonna get into that when I go down. Cause this is the only topic I want to teach today. I think it's very easy. Let me go down. You see, it's easy. After I move from that, a migratory something. So I think that's very easy today. Unless you guys want to go to migratory. But I'm gonna go to the limitations for that also, for the geographical. So yeah, the Caribbean definition is how you define the Caribbean. I never had a complete definition for the Caribbean, but I used what my teacher told me. She said that use the five use the five key principles and the chronologies that define what gives the Caribbean its definition. Include that in your definition in the Caribbean, so your markers can know that you have a little knowledge up here, like you have a little sense, so you can get a little extra marks, and you can use the examples up, and you can also mention limitations within your example, within your definition and within your examples. So the geographical Caribbean, this is defined based on the geographical, like the location of where the country is. You know, the key feature of the Caribbean is its Caribbean Sea, right? So once a country is within or it's washed upon the Caribbean Sea, they're automatically Caribbean. Would you agree? You agree? Yes or no? Hello? Do you agree? Hello?
Well, not completely.
And I understand it not completely because there are certain countries which is not even washed up on the Caribbean, and they're Caribbean. There are other countries who I believe are washed up on the Caribbean Sea, and they are not considered Caribbean. So I think the only reason why Bahamas is political. The only reason why which country washed up on the Caribbean Sea, like they're not even washed up on the Caribbean Sea and they're called Caribbean. No, I not remember the country right now. I would say no, Barbados have the same political system. I'm not remembering right
Would
now,
it
but
be Hispaniola or like Haiti and Dominican Republic? No?
yeah, those are washed up on the Caribbean Sea, but they're
Oh,
not they don't have the same, you know, they're also in the geological definition also, but they don't have this, they have the same history, but they do have the same yeah, they have the same political also, but not to the extent. But those countries are washed up on the Caribbean, and then you have to know examples of countries which are within the Caribbean and washed up on the Caribbean Sea. You just mentioned Hispaniola, Jamaica. You have to know examples of geographical Caribbean countries which got its definition based on their location. So also you need to know the definition, you need to know examples of countries, and I think you need to know the Caribbean Sea. You need to know about the Caribbean Sea. Those are the key marks for where you get marks for. And you can go to your syllabus, and you can also fact check with me, and you can look through where you get your marks for. Because in the syllabus, it states what you get your knowledge marks for and what you get a knowledge marks for. So that's the geographical definition of the Caribbean. It's quite easy. Guys, Caribbean studies is nothing to stress yourself about. You just need to know the facts. I just need to know what you need to know for now. So nobody watching it in class in the exam, you might get 50 something. I say, oh, me get 50 something. But when you go into the exam, you come up with a 2 or 1. It's just the facts of what you need to know. It's a lot, so you don't need to know too much or too many. You just need to know a portion of everything. So for the geographical definition of the Caribbean, it does need to include the Caribbean Sea. So you can say countries get their definition based the identifying feature or the key feature, which is the Caribbean Sea. They have to be washed up on the Caribbean Sea or within the Caribbean Sea. The Caribbean Sea must wash up on them because that is how they get the geographic definition of the Caribbean. Right. So the geographic Caribbean can also be defined using the lines of latitude and longitude. So that's another key feature that you can include. The Caribbean region stretches from 600 west, 900 west of the Greenwich Meridian. The region stretches from 50 degrees north of the equator to beyond 250 degrees north. It is sometimes extended to the 300 degrees north to the incorporate of Bermuda. That is just additional information, which you can include in your essay to get additional marks. So that's just a broader and a plus for you guys. But as I say, you just need to know the definition of the Caribbean geographic definition. You need to know the location feature. And also you need to know examples of countries which are located based on their geographic Caribbean definition. So the shortcomings, I'm guessing that's the limitations of the definition. The idea of the Caribbean basin and even its coordinates of longitude and latitude are interpreted subjectively. The geographic conception of the Caribbean is based on the view of the Caribbean as a basin with the surrounding territories representing the limits of the basin. So I'm guessing that they're saying there are some limitations to the definition, and that the Caribbean is viewed geographically based on the view Caribbean as a basin surrounding territories representing the limit of the basin. So they're saying that the definition of the Caribbean cannot only be, I'm guessing that's what they're saying, cannot only be the geographic. That cannot only be that countries which are located based on geographic are the Caribbean. So that is also a limitation because countries are washed up on the Caribbean Sea and they're not even Caribbean. And you have countries. I need to find the examples. Because when I talk, we just need to put my examples. And because
I googled it and it said Suriname, Guyana,
yeah,
and French Guyana.
and those are mainland territories, and they are washed up a little on the Caribbean Sea. And they shouldn't be Caribbean. I don't think they should be Caribbean. But that is why we have 5 different definitions. And I think Suriname and those mainland territories, yes, Suriname is a factor also because Suriname is not considered Caribbean. And even though they wash up on the Caribbean Sea, no, I may talk too fast now. I didn't even know it's one mainland territory is not considered Caribbean. And they wash up on the Caribbean Sea. I don't know if Suriname, because I think Suriname participates in Carifta. Like the Carifta games, the track and field games. So I don't want to say that they're not. I'll get my facts right next week. I'm gonna come with the facts because I'm can't bother right now for God to say the wrong thing. And I got send it from Uncle Owen and we're not in that people. So ready. What me reach now? Oh yeah, see the recite here. Belize is not in the Caribbean basin. That's what I'm saying now. Belize is not washed up on the Caribbean. No, they're not within the Caribbean basin, within the latitude, longitude, within that region. But it is large landmass in the Central America. I was saying again, the mainland territories, and is very much Caribbean. The definition excludes countries that are normally accepted as Caribbean, such as Guyana, Barbados, and Bahamas, because these countries are not washed up on the Caribbean Sea, but they have political history with the Caribbean. They have history with the Caribbean based on historical, based on the slavery. They are being defined as Caribbean. They can be defined as Caribbean because Bahamas with the sugar plantation, Barbados, they experienced slavery, and Guyana, they experienced some level of slavery within that Christopher Columbus time, and the Taínos, Mayas and those times, they were experiencing some of it, so they have considered themselves Caribbean. But if we were using we were using the geographic Caribbean definition to define the Caribbean only, you'd exclude those 3 countries. You get that? You copy that?
Yes, sir.
So if you were only using that's why you must always include the 5 little definition name. That's why I always say use the 5 key terms, because if you only use the geographic, it must define the Caribbean, and you tell them, oh, Caribbean are countries, can be defined as countries who are washed up on the Caribbean Sea or within the Caribbean Basin. You're gonna exclude countries like Guyana. You're gonna exclude countries like Barbados. You're gonna exclude countries like Bahamas, because these 3 countries, they have historical and political affiliation. That is why they are considered Caribbean. So if you only use geographic, the limitation, you're gonna exclude these 3 countries. And that is what I wanted. That is what I was telling you guys earlier when I was giving the definition of the Caribbean and also the limitation of the geographic definition. So the limitation of the geographic definition is that you exclude certain countries such as Guyana and Barbados, and you can also use the facts here. Barbados and Bahamas are located in the Atlantic Ocean and not the Caribbean Sea. And Guyana's coast also borders the Atlantic Ocean. Bermuda is also found in the Atlantic Sea. So you can say these countries are within the Atlantic Sea and they're not within the Caribbean Sea, but they are Caribbean because they experienced the same slavery as us. They had slave masters, them experienced the whipping, the riots, everything. They had the same experience as us. So yeah, that is the Caribbean definition of the geographic. We'll move on now to geological. I don't like this one because I'm not a geography student. So I don't really like that one here. As you guys can see, the first section of module 1 is geography. I would say the entire the first section is geography. And that's normally how your exam paper is set up. I think the 2023, the first module was peasantry. Last year we did geography. So I'm not sure what will come this year. So yeah, geological Caribbean. It is not as well used as other ways by which we define the Caribbean region. However, the defining feature is the Caribbean plate. I need to know that. Just as the geographic, the identifying feature was the Caribbean Sea, geological, the identifying key feature is the Caribbean plate. So that is what you need to know. Once you think about geological, Caribbean plate. You think about geographic, Caribbean Sea. And I'm going to ask you some questions as I go down. So yeah, which has marked the boundaries and the margins where it meets other plates. A plate is a subterranean feature that is a part of the Earth's crust and not which land and oceans are found. Much of the Caribbean region lies on the Caribbean plate, while the Caribbean plate is a significant entity on which to build for our conception of the Caribbean region. It does not include Guyana, the Bahamas, and much of Cuba. So that's our next limitation. Want to copy that? Am I going
Sir.
too far?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Repeat, please.
I was asking if you guys copy that. Any questions?
No, the last sentence about the Caribbean plate.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go briefly now. No, not briefly. I'm gonna go simple terms because this is a simple thing. I want you to learn simple and don't learn hard. Because if you learn hard, you're gonna just digest too much information, some of them unwanted. Because remember, I don't think you guys are gonna get tested on this. Cause this come last year. Some other things are gonna get tested on this. So I don't want to, but if you get tested, sorry guys, but I don't want to digest too much. Because when they know too much, I trouble. I don't say too much information is can be bad, but I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Talk too much now. I'm match up this fair. All right. Just like how the geographic was the Caribbean Sea, the geological is the Caribbean plate. The Caribbean plate, you know, when you get earthquake or anything, that is the plate that meet and it touch. So whenever earthquake happen, that is the plate that countries are located on. That is the plate that it affect you. You understand that? You copy that though?
Yes, sir.
All right. See it now? Certain countries are on the Caribbean plate. So you have certain countries which is on the Caribbean plate, but some countries are considered Caribbean, but they are not on the plate. So countries such as Guyana, they are not on the plate. Bahamas, they are not on the plate. And Cuba, not on the plate at all. I don't know which plate them depend. Many think. You have NASA and you have Cuscus. Somebody Google it for me and then tell me when they're not free. I don't know if it's Nazas or Cusca. I just thought Cuscus out of my head me at all. I don't know if it's that plate, those three are on. But they're not on the Caribbean plate. So that's a limitation of the definition of the geological Caribbean. I don't see any countries which is included in the definition, which shouldn't, like, they're only considered Caribbean because they're on the Caribbean plate. I don't know if any country like that. But what I can tell you guys, they asked this last year, them asked this and them asked geography last year. And you had to include the key features of why the country was not Caribbean or why the country is Caribbean. As I say, we get to next year and you guys see the past papers, then you guys are gonna understand what they're asking of you. So yeah, we're moving on. Did everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Everybody Let me see who there. Who want to read? Somebody come read historical for me, please. Or should I read? No one read? All right, I'm going to read. So, the historical definition of the Caribbean now. When you talk about historical, what are we talking about, guys? Come on, tell me what we're talking about. What about history? What we're talking about?
The colonization and the slavery time.
Right, copy that. Right, right. Well done. Anybody else? All right. We know the Caribbean is very small, and we know a lot of us go through the same thing within the Caribbean. Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, countries go through the same thing. We know that Haiti went through the Haitian Revolution with the French. Jamaica, they moved from, them go through the fighting with the Spaniards and the British come over, them have a signed treaty. We know the Morant Bay Rebellion. We know Sam Sharp Rebellion. I forget the rest of them. But we know that. We know countries, you know, Haiti, which other country? You have other countries who went through the same things just to get their independent, just to get their independence, my bad, just to be an independent nation. They went through a similar thing. And when people go through the similar stuff, we call it similarity. You know, it's part of their history. When they look back today and countries, they experience the same thing. So they have the same history, and that is how they got their definition of the Caribbean based on their history. So we're going to look into this now. So the historical definition of the Caribbean lies in the idea that the region shares similar historical processes regarding our English, Spanish, Dutch, or French colonial connections. These historical processes include the occupation of the area by the indigenous peoples, the genocide, and the war engaged against the, what that, I can't pronounce that. Next, African slavery and indentureship, colonialism, the development of plantation economy and plantation society, independence and foraging, a free society out of such experiences. So countries, we united, we had the same thing. The French, the Spanish, the Dutch, they came into our country, the British, they came into our country and they wanted to rule, but we overthrew them. We fight for our rights, we fought, we fight, we fought, whatever you want to call over them. Fight, fought. Oh, why did I say fought? My bad. Fought, and we did our thing just to ensure that our country was free, just to get our independence. So with that being said, also we have similar language. So you have to understand, we have similar language, similar culture. We speak English, some countries speak French, some people speak that, some people speak that. So you have to understand that we have the same history. So that is why we are Caribbean. And I think the countries like Guyana now would have been included in this definition because you have to remember that Guyana went through the same slavery as us. So Guyana is now included in this. I think a limitation of this would have been, which country never got through slavery in the Caribbean? What, British Virgin? I think every country got through slavery in the Caribbean. But if you can't find it, then tell me which country never went through slavery in the Caribbean. Then you have the political definition of the Caribbean. This one is a bit more, I would say it's close to history, and they don't want to get it mixed up. This gave me a little challenge because it was very close to history, and I wanted to know what the difference, when them could include this in a history definition because they're kind of the same thing. But yeah, the Caribbean, it has three main political systems. You guys know this because you live in the Caribbean. You know what the independent state is, you know what the associated state is, you know what a colonial dependency, you know what those three are. So independent state, I should take questions. Anybody have any questions for historical? Anybody have any questions for historical? Are you guys comprehend, understand? Or I'm going too fast? I don't like the teaching style. Tell me, please. Hello? Hola.
I am understanding, sir.
Everybody understand? We're not looking at the chat.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I understand.
But just want to comprehend. As I said, this is the easier part. This is something you don't really need to know externally because I don't think this is gonna come back on CXC because it came last year. The only problem it might come back, they might ask political and historical and the diaspora. Them ask geography last year and them ask geology, so I don't think this will come back. But as I say, you guys go to school, you have a little internal exams, which I guess you guys are gonna be tested on this on your internal exams. So you guys need to know this. The lucky thing about Caribbean studies is that module 3 is multiple choice. So you only learn module 1 and module 2. So module 3 is all multiple choice. And guys, you would have learned a couple of module 3 questions in communication studies. So there's nothing for you to be worried about. But some schools try to teach module 3 and module 1 in the same term and then teach module 2 alone for the second term. However, the school that I went to, module 3 wasn't taught. So and module 2, it was kind of finished, but it wasn't finished in depth. So it's your knowledge now to kind of know what you do. And you have to read. You have to read. And I guess that everybody in it is humanities student, or are you guys a mixture of science and business?
Straight science for me.
You guys are science students? All right, let me continue. I have 9 minutes left, so I'm going to run through political and then I review. So, independent states, countries which have gained their independence, they're independent nation. These countries are Jamaica, we know this. Haiti, they're independent. So they would have the majority of the Caribbean, I would say, are independent states. Barbados, independent. Cuba is communist. I think Cuba would go under. No, I'm gonna put Cuba nowhere now. Let's not talk about Cuba. I'm not a communist right there. So yeah, we know countries like which other countries in the Caribbean would say it's independent based on their political something. Come guys, talk up. All right, while you guys thinking about it, let me move to associated. I'm running late on time, so I'm trying to rush. So these countries are not independent, but they enjoy all the rights of the privilege of the country that governs it. So Puerto Rico is not an independent state. They're associated. Who are they associated? Who are their leaders? We'll say, guys. Example, come. Somebody tell me. It must have little sense. Somebody tell me who governs Puerto Rico. Guys, no flap, please. Why? Guys, hello? The United States of America, they're the ones that govern Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, certain things that are done in the country, they have to talk to USA before it's done. So USA, I think, manage their military, they manage the money. I think them use USA dollars in Puerto Rico. Don't quote me, you can always do your research. So yeah, these are countries that govern certain affairs within the country. So international affairs of the country, USA governs that for Puerto Rico. UK governs that for Anguilla because Anguilla cannot represent themselves at the Olympic Games. If you want to run for the Olympic, you have to run for UK. Certain things Anguilla cannot do for themselves because UK does it for them. So moving on to colonial dependencies, these are countries that are still not independent. They are governed by other countries. So them not have no rights. Them still under the colonial system, the Babylon system. And they can write this stuff in the exam just to get extra marks. Them still under the Babylon system. So Turks and Caicos, still under the Babylon system. I'm not sure about Bermuda, but Cayman Islands still under the Babylon system. Bermuda still under, British Virgin Islands still under there. They have to look up to UK. UK is what governs them also. So while Puerto Rico might be an independent state, well, they are independent to some level, but they're not fully independent because certain international affairs, USA has to govern that. But these countries, none at all, they're not independent. Our countries govern every single thing that going on in the country. A certain country governs it. So the colonial, you have to understand that UK, them govern that. So now we're moving on to the Caribbean diaspora. Are you guys supposed to know the word diaspora means scatter? So your mother might live in USA, but she's Jamaican. Your mother might live in UK, but she's Caribbean. Your mother might live in Trinidad, might live in all over the Caribbean and all over the world in a sense, but she is Caribbean. So she is spread. So the thing it's spread. Guys, I might have to go create a next meeting, which I don't want to do. So let me teach first, and then you guys can join back and then ask the question. So yeah, because my time is running out at 5 minutes. So the diaspora is spread, it's scattered. So you have Nottingham Festival that Caribbean and Caribbean people attend. You have different type of carnivals over the world. Caribana, this festival kept in Canada is being kept in Canada or kept in Canada throughout every year annually. So Caribbean people, they come together. But that does not take away that you're not Caribbean. You're born in Caribbean. So whenever you do a census, you have to be included because you're Caribbean, you're just not living within the Caribbean. When teachers go and they migrate, doctors and those important people are even the small man in run off a foreign, he's still Caribbean. So he's spread across the diaspora, and that's what diaspora mean, scatter, spread. So yeah. So people who reside in another geographical location, for instance, people of the Caribbean ancestry who reside in European metropolia, yeah, that word there, pollutant countries, North America, Canada, and among others who have shared emotional connection within or to their homeland. So I didn't even read the definition and say, remember a couple things? So yeah, any questions now? Let me take them fast and quick.
All right, so I have a question. With political, I'm asking about the associated state and the colonial dependencies. I'm asking that countries with the associated state, are they happy or do they agree with the terms by the country that governs them, and the colonial does not agree? Is it the difference?
Associated States, they have their independence. So they have an Independence Day and everything. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. But they don't govern international affairs. So they have no government, I'll really say. They have no like internationally, like trade, liberalization, those stuff. They have no affiliation with that. It's a country that really sit over them head. They're just like how we have a government, and then the people in the country, they have their rights to do this and that, but we don't govern the police, we don't govern the doctor, the nurse, we don't govern certain institutions within our country. The government does that. The same thing for the Associated States. For the colonial, if I'm getting what you're saying, these countries, they have, it's just like slavery, them still under slavery, but we can't say slavery now because them not, them not get weapon, them thing there, but they're not independent. None at all. So while Associated State, they are kind of half independent, they are not independent. And I know this is a tricky question, where you ask, because people might ask, but Jamaica still under the UK system, why Jamaica is not associated? No, we still have Governor General, we do have a president. Why Jamaica not? Why Jamaica? Why them say Jamaica independent? But it's what it is. Jamaica is fully independent. We have an Independence Day. We have our own flag. Colonial countries, they have their own flag, I believe, but they still use the UK system. A UK running at them country. Well, Cayman use Cayman dollars, but the UK still manage everything for them. So yeah, if you understand.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
So guys, that's it. Any other question? That's it for the day. I hope you guys understand that. I'm gonna go on this. I'm gonna stop share. Guys, that's it for the entire session. I hope you guys understand Caribbean stuff. You understand and comprehend?
Yes, sir.
I know I'm
Yes,
rushing
sir,
up.
we understand.
Rushing up. But we just want to have, yeah, what you saying, Agritech? Shadi? It the me
I
too, any
was saying that I understand.
more open to understand. We don't want to understand too much, but we just want to go class and then the teacher probably, that's if you don't have teacher September, or if the school probably start today, but we just want to know can participate in a class and know a couple things in a class. All they just need to do is facts. Have your facts. Use the peel format, point, explain, example, and you link everything to your point. That's all you need to do. And with that being said, it's the end of the first session. I think next week I one of them there, I'm gonna tell you when the second one. Cause I have sociology and I have tourism for gonna do. And social studies C6. So yeah, guys. I'll tell you when I'm available again. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you for coming. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Goodbye. Because there's something probably in now. So I don't want it going. But you can always text me though. I'm sending the SB. I'm going to send it in the group. So then so much on the text. But you can always text me. Like I'm open to make friends. So I'm not a harsh person. I don't bite. So yeah,
So the recording, where will it be?
it'll be on YouTube. It's still a record now. I hope it's not a record now. I'm hoping that it's soon done, the meet soon done, but